What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of THP Strength. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the arm swing. 1 foot, 2 foot, circular, pendulum. We're going to be talking about them all. Isaiah's super excited. I'll go ahead and introduce Isaiah. This is Isaiah Rivera. He is super excited to dunk today. He's probably going to hit at least a 47-inch vertical on the day and will probably hit a reverse 360 J-Rich. I don't even know if that's a dunk. I just made it up.
I should just fucking do it. I'll add it to the list. That would actually be a good idea.
All right, Isaiah, tell me. Go ahead, introduce me to the fans.
And this is John Evans. He has been training me for about 2.5 years now. He is a 1 foot jump specialist. Max ever on Vertec 39. He's definitely reached the 40.
39 and a half.
39 and a half. He's definitely reached the 40. Just hasn't tested it. He is extremely smart. One of the best jump trainers on the planet, in my opinion, the best jump trainer on the planet.
Flattering.
And he is very credentialed.
All right, moving on. This week's podcast is brought to you by Legion Supplements. One of the biggest questions we get asked is, how can I improve recovery? One of the only ways to do this is to give your body more of what it already needs. Increasing bioavailability of these micronutrients can help you. In other words, it lets your body do what it is already trying to do during recovery, but better. Use code THP at checkout if you decide to purchase some of the supplements. My favorite supplements, definitely the multivitamin. I think it is one of the most crucial things that you can add into your regimen to make sure that you are recovering appropriately. Brief anecdote, my roommate started getting shin splints really, really bad, borderline stress fracture. And I was like, what does your calcium look like? What's your vitamin D look like? I was taking in none of either of those. And basically didn't break his shin, but hurt his shin very severely. So just a short anecdote to show you, had he just decided to supplement vitamin D or calcium, probably could have avoided that as a whole, right? So even though it's not necessarily going to guarantee any changes, it's an insurance policy. You're making sure that you are covering all of your bases, and it's something that is actually really important because odds are the majority of people are not getting enough micronutrients. Secondly, we want to shout out Hawken Dynamics. If you guys are looking for force plates, highly recommend them. They are portable force plates. They plug into a wall and charge with a USB, and they're just really good. They're really reliable, very accurate, gives you really robust data, and they have leasing options, so that's a good option for people that maybe are on a budget. And then lastly, if you want to get coached by Isaiah, myself, Austin, Hunter, you want to be in the mix with those guys, have access to the Facebook group, access to our training inventory, exercise library, every exercise we would prescribe or how we would prescribe it. Sign up for coaching. Full service is more holistic. You'll get access to Isaiah and I on a daily basis or hour by hour basis, sometimes depending. And usually we get back to those guys, twice, 2-3 times a day if we have to. And the training only is if maybe you're like, okay, I don't need quite as much guidance. I maybe just want the Facebook group, and we write up the program for you based on your individual specific needs for a given amount of time. So that's a little bit about the training, but let's get into it here. So we are talking about arm swing. Isaiah, your experience with arm swing.
Is arm swing? That's what we decided? I thought it was 1 foot jump.
No, I definitely said arm swing. We were between two topics, and we picked arm swing.
Yeah. All right. So my experience with arm swing. So I have to kind of rack my brain for this, but I think the first time that I ever really started focusing on arm swing really was when I first started dunking and I started studying a lot of the pro dunkers, and I noticed there was like 2 different ways that 2 foot dunkers would jump. The most common being what I call a circular arm swing now, and that's kind of guys are running just like a regular stride, right? Opposite arm, opposite leg is up, and then as they take their penultimate, it kind of just seamlessly becomes an arm swing. Like they're moving the arms regularly, and then they both go back. It smoothly transitions from a running arm swing to into the full arm swing that you see. And then the second type of arm swing that I would see would be a pendulum arm swing. And there wasn't a lot of people even doing this at the time. The only person was really Jordan Kilgannon. And I kind of modeled my jump technique after Jordan Kilgannon. So I started kind of breaking down exactly how he would do it. And with pendulum, the biggest difference is when the penultimate step hits the ground at mid support, both your hands are in front of you. Whereas on a circular arm swing, only one arm would be in front of you and the other arm behind you. So I started just working on it a lot, started studying it. And then in terms of how my jump feels, the arm swing is kind of like, it kind of connects everything. I always mention that like your right hand and your right leg are like basically connected on a 2-foot jump. So when I'm thinking, right when I'm planting my penultimate step, my right hand comes up with my left hand and my right leg plants. And then as I'm putting my arms back as hard as I can, swinging them back as far as possible, I'm pushing with my right leg as hard as I can, as far as possible. And then when my right arm is coming back up to swing up on my jump, it's moving with my right leg. So it's a very important part of a 2-foot jump. And a jump with a good arm swing versus something like off the dribble, it can be a few inches of difference. Something I've noticed over these past few weeks, building up my jump, starting off one step off the dribble first, I've noticed that without the ball is way more intense. Like I can probably get like 5-6 inches higher without the ball with just a full arm swing. And then this is my kind of just second anecdote. I actually tried a circular arm swing for close to a year. I used to think that my like run up looked very ugly, and I would always get like a lot of comments on how my run up looked very ugly, which in hindsight, honestly, it was just that I was very underdeveloped and I didn't put in enough reps to kind of have the technique sharpen up. With time, it was gonna kind of just fix itself. I found with my jump technique, but yeah, it was very ugly. I would run and like I would have like way too much motion in my arms as I was running, and then I would kind of exaggerate bringing both my arms up and like bringing them back, so it looked very ugly. So I decided to switch to circular arm swing, and I did it literally for about a year straight, and it didn't really work out for me too well. There was definitely and I think a lot of this too is like
on YouTube.
Yeah. From July 2016 to around May 2017, around there. Every video on my Instagram.
Right?
Huh?
That's when you knew me.
Yeah, it was right. I like switched it.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. It was when I met you. I think I switched it back to regular like right after like meeting you or something like that. But yeah, I switched that, and I remember my first session going back to my regular arm swing, like a pendulum arm swing. I hit under both for the first time. I did like a double arm elbow hang. It was my best dunk session ever.
Was that on?
And that was after, huh?
That was on 910.
No. It was a 10-foot rim.
Wow.
It was on Earth Day with Steven. That's why I remember it. Yeah.
Steven loves Earth Day.
Yeah. So yeah, we had an Earth Day dunk session that year, 2017. So yeah, from like mid 2016 to mid 2017, if you look at all my YouTube videos, it's circular arm swing, and it looks like, I don't know, it was very unnatural for me, and I kind of like forced it. And something that I noticed that was a big difference on circular versus pendulum. Pendulum, I can jump a lot more straight up and down, versus when I go circular, I have a lot more horizontal momentum in my jumps. So it made it look like I was getting lower. And then it was also I just wasn't getting as high because I was traveling more out. So I switched back, and I haven't looked back ever since. And yeah, that's kind of my story with arm swing.
Yeah, that's interesting. Off 2-foot, I think I always used pendulum, like because I played volleyball, and it just felt more natural with the arm swing because they're together, they come back, and then you drive the free arm down, and then the hitting arm comes through. So for me, that's kind of how I learned the arm swing, was more like a pendulum. And I think probably a lot of volleyball players maybe use the pendulum over the circular. I think circular for both 1 foot and 2 foot, You will see it in 1 foot, actually. Levchenko, the high jumper from, I think, maybe Ukraine, is a circular arm swing 1 foot jumper. So as she comes in, her arm is like circling around, and then right as she takes off, she like throws it back towards the bar. Like, it's a very kind of weird, unique strategy. Not a lot of people use it in high jump, but it can help you generate like somersault in the other direction. So some people do it. But I have a very long arm swing for 1 foot when I dunk, because dunking is such a short approach. Usually it's like 3 steps. And I'm used to high jump where you get 10. So in high jump, I don't have that arm swing. In high jump, I have a very like, I can't remember exactly. I think there's only a couple videos that I have of me high jumping well with like showing the whole arm swing. And I actually do a pendulum arm swing, double arm block, right? With the arms tucked probably maybe at like 90, probably a little more open than that. But they're not all the way down. Whereas if you watch like my old dunk videos, like one-handers and two-handers when I was bigger, my arm swing was giant. Like, it was probably the biggest arm swing out of any 1 foot jumper. I can't think of anyone that had quite an arm swing like that. And the takeoff was like so slow. Can you think of anyone that had an arm swing like that?
Like what exactly?
Like where my knuckles were coming across the floor as a 1 foot jumper?
Nobody really. I think does Dallin have a...
Dallin has a really tight arm swing. Dallin has a really tight arm swing. I think anytime you're trying to dunk, I've learned this actually, anytime you're trying to do a trick dunk, you basically can't have a long arm swing. Like, if you're doing it off the lob, because the axis of rotation, the moment of inertia is so long that your angular speed is so low. Like, you just can't get through the arm action fast enough. And if you keep a really long arm swing, it slows down your takeoff. That's true. I mean, you talk about like you feel like you have more horizontal momentum with the circular arm swing. Well, that's because you do. You know, you're able to conserve your horizontal momentum a little bit better with a circular arm swing or like a running action off the ground. Whereas if you do a double arm swing, it interrupts that horizontal momentum, but it does give you, objectively, gives you more lift on a double arm block. So it's a balance, because in high jump, you need to deflect off the ground. You have to have a certain velocity at takeoff. And it's almost better if you have a higher velocity. You can't move too slowly. If you move too slowly, you won't penetrate into the pit far enough. So your arm swing has to be sufficiently short, and your ground contact time has to be sufficiently short. If the braking forces are too high, too long, you won't penetrate into the pit. You'll just come straight up and straight down, and you won't have any somersault. So I've kind of like played with a bunch of them. When I speed jump off my right, I do a single arm, and that maintains the horizontal velocity better. I have a higher takeoff velocity. I, generally speaking, can amortize a little bit better that way. I can block the takeoff quicker. So I'm able to convert more of that horizontal to vertical momentum a little bit better. Whereas when I use a double arm block, I have a much slower run up, and I'm not nearly as capable in terms of translating that horizontal to vertical momentum. I just can't do it as well, because I'm moving so slow when I do that big arm swing, and you can't deflect off the ground that well. You can't get like a hard punching action like 1 foot jumping feels like. So I think my right foot, I do a single arm, like a curl and press, kind of like Nick Briz and Jordan Wessner. And then on my left leg, when I do trick dunks, I have a very tight arm swing. With the ball, it's like a cross from hip to opposite shoulder. And then when I do off the lob, generally, if it's like a max one effort one-hander, it depends on the style. Sometimes I'll finish like with my hands keep the arms tighter, finish with my hands by my eyes. That's actually where I've had my highest, I would say that. My highest jumps ever, like for vertical touch, have been with a tighter arm swing. They're not all the way down, because it's that balance of like horizontal momentum to vertical and getting the benefit of the arm swing. So it's like a delicate balance. I think the faster you run, the tighter the arm swing has to be, whether it's double arm or single arm. The slower you run, the bigger it can be, which makes sense why you felt certain things whenever you when you did the pendulum versus the circular arm. And
you see that, I think you see that a lot with, like, it's really rare to see somebody with a very fast run up and a big ass arm swing at the same time. Like I think Jordan might be the only guy that's like fucking fast as shit on his approach, and then just like enormous arm swing at the exact same time.
Jay Clark does a pendulum, right?
Yeah, he does actually. Yeah.
He's pretty quick too. He doesn't have quite as much speed as Jordan though. He's like a powerhouse. He's so powerful. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And then mine's like in between. Like I have a big arm swing, but it's not like as big as it could be. I used to try to exaggerate it as much as possible. And then another thing, I was on my height checks. I have a bigger arm swing than when I'm trying to trach dunk as well. So yeah, those are some pretty interesting anecdotes. But this video I sent you, the craziest jumps in volleyball.
Yeah.
For the listeners, go to YouTube and type in craziest jumps in volleyball.
Just saw that.
They're all basically pendulum, but I wanted you specifically to go to 31 seconds and look at the position this guy's in when he jumps. Again, for the listeners, I'm going to describe it. He's a 2-foot jumper right left.
Oh my
He's
God.
jumping off the inside of his foot,
on
his plant leg.
Yeah, it's crazy. You see that position on the block. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah,
I gotta take that video and start making videos.
You should make a Instagram.
Yeah, I
need
to post more about volleyball. It's actually really interesting. But that was crazy. That was actually so crazy.
Yeah,
I can't wait to watch that back again. That was insane. So I think we've covered kind of our own experiences. I put a bunch of notes here. One of the things that I guess we can talk about is looking at off the dribble, the arm positioning and how the arms move versus off a run up and off a lob. Because do you remember when Kyle Crowley came up and he was dunking with Steven? Do you remember that? Yeah. Do you remember how
he was dunking with me too?
Yeah, he was dunking with all of you guys. I just wrote these two down because I remember talking to Steven about it, and Steven was like, I was like, hey, Steven, how'd it go? And he's like, or I asked him, like, what'd you think of Kyle? He's like, dude, his off the dribble was nasty. Like, he could get up so easily. And then I was like, okay, well, like, how about everything else? He's like, he didn't look like himself off the lob. Like, he just didn't have the same, like, pop. And if you talk to Kyle, he had just torn his pec, I think, or hurt his pec. So he was coming back off of that, and it wasn't 100%. And he just couldn't get the same arm swing that he was able to previously get. And if you guys don't know who Kyle Crowley is, look him up. He was good. Like, has probably the worst knees of any athlete I've ever coached in my entire life, I think. I mean, he's actually someone that jumped every day. He jumped every day, got his vertical crazy, and in the process ruined his knees very badly. Like, it's been years.
What's really interesting? When he came down, he was staying with me, and this was when he was doing your training. Like, and I don't think I was on your training at this time, and my knees were pretty fucked up. And I remember he did a shakeout. He did power cleans the day before because he was on Monday, Wednesday, Friday lift, and then dunk Saturday.
Yeah.
So we were gonna all have a session on Saturday. So he comes up. We go to the gym to work out, right? And then he does power cleans the day before and squats and all that stuff. And I was just like in amazement. I was like, wow, like I wish I could do that stuff with my knees. And then the next day he does a shakeout the day of his session. And then I was like, what the fuck? Like if I were to do a shakeout, my knees would die. Like I have to save that for the session. Like
now that would be like, I think I was trying to potentiate and be like, you're gonna have
it was
yeah, like a super light clean day, super light back squat or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly. His knees were always up and down. It was one of the most challenging cases I've ever had, but he also taught me a lot. Kyle has patellofemoral pain. He has chondromalacia. He has quad tendinopathy and patella tendinopathy, and it is pretty bad. And it's tough because if you treat one, you treat the patella, the PFP will get worse. And if you treat the quad tendon, it'll make the PFP worse. If you treat the PFP, the patella and the quad won't necessarily progress in the way that they should. So it's a very complex kind of scenario. It made it really hard to get him better, but man, I could talk about that for a while and the anecdote about that and what I learned and different things. Anyways, the biggest thing I was saying about that was Steven gets up off the lob. Like, he has a 42 or 43 inch vertical off the lob on his best days, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
But if he goes off the dribble, terrible. Just straight doo-doo. Just not good. And he should be able to, with a 43 inch vertical, bang one-handers off the dribble. But Steven uses his arm swing and that transfer of horizontal to vertical momentum so well when he's running a full approach. And when he doesn't have that, he just can't get the same lift. And a big part of that is that Steven is not nearly as strong as Kyle is. Like, if you want to get good off the dribble, one of the most important, or even off vert, one of the most important things is just be strong as shit. Like, you have to be able to, you got to be able to move some weight. So I think, like, just in general, that's some advice is like if you're off an approach and you're running faster, you have a big arm swing or whatever else, you're getting off the ground a lot, you probably don't rely quite as much on strength. Whereas if you're really good off the dribble, either it's a couple things. Either you have really good mobility and you're really fast off the dribble, like you can get into position really quickly and you have a really wide stance, or you are just mega strong and you can just push out of that position super easily without a lot of speed. I think those are kind of generally the two approaches that you can take. But as far as the arm swing, obviously that's a big difference and something that you can observe when just kind of like looking at it off the dribble versus off the lob. I guess, Isaiah, when you go off the dribble, what is your arm swing like for 2 feet?
So I was actually just looking at my off the dribble technique. That way I could explain it. So what I'm doing is, as I'm taking the penultimate, I have the ball in front of me, right? Touching both hands. The ball stays. It starts below my waist. And then as I push with my penultimate, I'm pushing the ball forward. So, in the arm swing.
Yeah.
In the arm swing, as you're pushing the arms back. So it's the opposite when you're going off the dribble. Now when you're going off the dribble, the ball's low. It's below your waist. You're pushing the ball forward as your step goes forward.
Now, you're trying to generate as much horizontal momentum as, like, you're trying to block yourself as hard as possible. You're trying to get an arm block off of that step.
Yeah. But you don't want to exaggerate it. You don't want to I think if you exaggerate the push of the ball forward, it'll separate itself from the jump.
I agree.
Like,
well, I think what happens is if you push too far out, you don't get a true block, right? Like you don't change the momentum of the ball back towards you. So it's not like a check in your momentum, right? Like you need to basically like check the ball forward and pull it back. Versus if you like throw it forward and you don't time up that push with it, you're not going to get, because you could hypothetically time it up with a big push, but you'd have to time the pull back. It would be really hard to get into position.
Like that's something I know with Corey Chisholm. It's an issue that he has, because I tell him to, like, you have to push the ball forward off the dribble, but then when he does it, the ball goes up to his head, like as he's taking the penultimate. So it's super high, and he's like fully extended, like in front of him.
Yeah, he doesn't synchronize the movement at all. He has to sync up
versus
the push.
When I do it, my arms stay at a 90-degree angle, so I'm not extending fully with my arms. It's like, and sorry for the listeners, you can't really see this, but I'm down here, and then I'm going like that. Like,
yeah,
it's literally that kind of. It's like a what?
Like a dumbbell, like front raise. Dumbbell front.
Yeah.
And like you, but
and it's like
it's like you're holding the dumbbell vertically, like a goblet squat or like a shake weight, and you're like shaking the weight vertically. It's like that's a shake weight. No, it's a shake weight. It's a shake weight. Yeah. That same angle where you're here, but you're doing a shake, but pause, but you're doing the shake weight below your waist. Like that's oh god.
Like that's the motion. So I'm taking my penultimate, I'm pushing, I do the kind of one shake weight motion, and then from there, this part is very, I don't know, it feels smooth. Like it's not aggressive. I go forward, and then like in a circle, like I go like that, I think
into
one
big
jump.
Mistake that people do with that is that they don't time up their block foot. What I've noticed, people at the dribble, when they do trick dunks or anything else, they do not time up their arm drive with their block foot. So you have to, like, when you pull that ball back into yourself and you go to, like, if you're going off the dribble or whatever else, as your block foot comes down, you're getting this huge block and this, like, kind of jolt of force through that foot. You should be punching the ball vertically at that moment so that it's like a true block. You know what I mean? A block is where you see a high peak force. That's like what you do.
It's literally identical to, like, when you're not going off the dribble, how for a left-right jumper, your right hand is cool. Your right hand is like perfectly in sync with your block foot. Like at the bottom position, your block foot's touching. Same exact thing when I'm going off the dribble. So when I'm going off the dribble, as the ball is dipping down, and it's at the lowest point, that's when my block foot's hitting, and that's when I'm like, boom, aggressively like punching it up.
What's the push and punch? Is that the cue Tyler uses?
Push and punch, for like a 2-foot jump.
Yeah, so it's basically the same thing. Like that cue's so good because that's what it feels. It feels like a jab. You're like jabbing your foot into the ground as well as you're jabbing your arms, kind of like punching them upwards. Like you're punching your arms upward and you're jabbing your foot in the ground at the same exact time. And that gives you just like, it's like a super summation of force at that moment, right? Because you have all this synchronized action happening at once. You have the arm action happening super quick and a super block, like aggressive block and momentum or punch upwards. And then you have like the block foot coming down to the floor, and timing those up together, you get a lot of lift out of the jump. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand. Even like Nagel struggle with it. Ryan Nagel struggled with it. I'm like, dude, you've been playing basketball for years. Like another person struggled with it, Anthony Allen. These dudes have played basketball for like years. Like they can go off one and they can just like, they punch the ball up to their eyes and then they cock the ball back behind their head. But as soon as you have to tell them like, okay, do a windmill, they want to inherently keep the ball by their waist and not use their arms at all and just swing it backwards. Yeah. Versus timing up the arm swing with their block foot and then pushing the ball down and back. Like it's kind of a weird, it's like a weird sensation for people. Like they don't quite understand it, but once they get it that one time, then they're like, oh shit, that's what it feels like. Yeah. And then they can do it over and over and over again. And that's something big off the dribble.
Two people that I recommend you watch in order and like study the shit out of them in order to learn how to dunk off the dribble off 2 feet is not Staples. Well, these are the two people because I'm a left-right jumper, so like these are the people I studied. Air up there. Like, in my opinion, the best off the dribble dunker of all time.
And Jordan.
and Lepek.
Oh, Lepek? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lepek is also one of the best off the dribble dunkers of all time. Especially on spins. If you study their spins, you will understand. Like, and you have to look at everything. Like you have to compare. Literally, the best thing you can do is compare it frame by frame. At mid support of the penultimate, where am I at versus where are they at? At like mid penultimate, where are they at? Or flight of the penultimate, I mean, where are they at versus where am I at? At the block foot, where are they at versus where am I at? And just compare it, and then just do walkthroughs, like walk through your arm swing, and technique. Like that's literally how I learned. Remember, my knees were fucked up, so I would literally just walk through and like visualize, like look at them, and then I would copy exactly how they were doing it. Yeah. So
I think one thing that we didn't necessarily cover is like the arm swing that speed jumpers use and power jumpers. I talked about power jumpers a little bit, but generally speaking, off one, you can do a running action where like as your right foot comes, or as your right knee drives up, your free leg drives up, your left arm drives up, and the opposite side arm, the right arm drives back. So it's like your right knee's forward and your right arm's back. So you have this split position, basically, like, again, a running action. And the left arm is up. And you get vertical impulse the same way that you do in upright sprinting, right? Even though you're swinging one arm forward, you're swinging one arm back. So those offset, right? You don't get a benefit in the horizontal momentum building in either direction because your arm's swinging backwards, the other arm's swinging forwards. They check each other, right? Yeah. But both arms are moving vertically. So you get a big vertical impulse from both arms moving vertically, right? Like the upper arm's blocking to 90 degrees. And when you do a 1 foot jump, you'll see that pretty often, like especially on between the legs. If you watch it between the legs off the lob, most everyone, and I asked Isaiah this, will do a running arm action because the ball is right at their eye height and their hand is in the perfect position to grab it and then just swing it right through the legs. Like,
and this is for 1 foot jumps, by the way.
Yeah, for 1 foot jumps. So you'll see it like super, super commonly. The problem is that it really, in my opinion, the takeoff becomes more of like a push. And that's something that I think just on trick dunks in general, like you're not thinking as much about the takeoff, so your foot just kind of like plops into the ground. Very few guys can get a correct penultimate step and then deflection off the ground when they do that. Like you oftentimes won't see it in dunking, but they're still doing like a running arm swing like this, left arm forward, right arm back. In high jump, you will not see that. You will, but they will actually they'll kind of keep their close arm to the bar. Like if you're a right-footed jumper, you're starting on the left side, you're curving in, and you're planting your right foot across your body. What will happen is the right arm swings up and forward, and then the left arm is kind of held either by their shoulder or, generally speaking, by their shoulder, and then they'll kind of like punch the left arm up from their shoulder, the one closer to the bar, and they'll swing their free arm together. And it leads to this almost like a dive action, And Briz does it too, actually. Like if you watch Briz and Jordan Westner, they'll hold the ball like by their shoulder, off the dribble especially. They'll curl and press it. So as they jump and they drive the free leg forward, they are curling and pressing the ball up over their head, as well as driving the free arm up and driving the free leg up. And what that does is it conserves their horizontal momentum like super well. It's still a running action, right? But they get the benefit of having a very high position of their center of mass at takeoff. So they get to deflect off the ground, use all their elasticity, all their speed to go vertically, but they're also blocking the free arm, the one that's swinging through in running action, while they're also curling and pressing the ball. So if you're a speed jumper, generally speaking, you have to keep the ball by your shoulder and then curl it up. Well, you actually keep it, you dribble low to the ground, and then you curl it up to your shoulder, and then you turn the ball over and press it up over your head. And it's a kind of like super, the faster it happens, the harder it is to hold on to the ball. Briz is probably the best at it, I think. Do you know of anyone that does it better than him?
Nah, Briz is crazy because he'll do it like in game, like through
Weaving.
Traffic. Yeah.
It's crazy.
And then just
his
so
coordination
it's
is like
really interesting.
crazy with the ball. Like his ball handling, his ability to do that is crazy. And like Jordy usually does it off a run up. Like Jordy doesn't do it off a dribble very often. He'll just kind of hold it by his shoulder, run full speed, and then curl and press it. You know, he kind of palms the whole thing. Pat Taker does the same thing when he dunks like speed jumping. So Briz is crazy because he can get into position so fast. Like he gets into takeoff position off the dribble better and faster than like anyone I've ever seen. It's really, really, really impressive. So that's how like a lot of dunkers do it. And high jump, like I said, it's a little bit different, but you know, again, pretty similar. And you get kind of the benefits of maintaining horizontal velocity, deflecting off the ground, and getting like a sharp block at takeoff because it's a really tight arm swing and everything happens super fast. So it's, I don't know, it's effective. Like that's what I do as well. Whenever I go high jump, I kind of use my like lead arm as a guide arm, and then I try to punch it vertically as I drive the free arm together. And then I, swing the leg through. Gives you a really good blocking action. It feels like the block and the arm swing are so important to time up together. Like if they don't, it's such a simple thing and I never talk about it, but you have to like swing the arm down and punch the arms vertically. It's like a jab. Like you're jabbing your arms like upwards and swinging them upwards right as you're like hitting the ground. So it feels like if you were to just like punch your hand. That's what a good speed jump takeoff feels like. It feels like boom, like everything is just peak forces, synchronized summation of forces really quick all at one time, and then you just pop off the ground. So that's kind of how that feels. The other option is obviously like a pendulum arm swing, which not a lot of guys do. Like I think Sutherland does, right?
Sutherland.
He does off the lob, I think. If it's not a between the legs. I actually don't know though.
I think his might vary.
I think his does. I think he's so freaky that he can switch arm swings depending on the dunk, and it doesn't matter. We're going to have to check. We're going to have to check this out. Dallin uses a double arm swing, a really tight double arm swing. I know that for sure. When on my trick dunks, I keep the arms really tight.
So when he goes cuff, it's like a pendulum.
Yep. What's he do off the lob? Oh, he archived everything. Jordan, what are you doing?
Oh, I see a lob.
Okay, here we go. I found one too.
Yeah, pendulum.
He goes pendulum?
Pendulum when he goes off a lob, yeah.
So does he ever go circular? What about between the legs? He's got to go. Dude, I can't find any videos of him dunking anymore.
East Bay's, I'm not sure. Actually, I know exactly what video.
I'm watching the one that you sent me yesterday that we looked at with the ridiculous windmill. He generally does a pendulum, but I don't know what he does on East Bay's.
I know exactly what video to look at.
Dude, he's such a freak.
On YouTube, if you look up lift to dunk.
So when he does the win, he does a pendulum. I don't think you can do it any other way. Or sorry, he does a running arm action. I don't think you can do it any other way.
Windmill, he went pendulum. Off the backboard pendulum. Yeah, he might be. I think he's just the pendulum guy.
Maybe I just need to watch a bunch of him.
Facts.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's interesting. But you know who else is Chase pendulum? Chase switches, I think. Chase switches.
I'm not sure about Chase.
I think some guys switch depending on the dunk. I'm like pretty sure.
Oh, I found an East Bay.
Is it?
I think he switched.
Did he switch? Is it running?
I think he
action?
switched on the East Bay.
Damn. So it's like dunk specific too. Most guys find it easier to do that, to do the running arm action. They'll switch.
Yeah.
But like,
He went switch on East Bay.
That's interesting. Well, goes to show you.
Yeah.
What I was saying is it's dunk specific for most guys, but for max touch, I think you watch the majority of their arm swings, and the majority of power jumpers will be double arm, I think, like for max touch.
Jordan's is interesting though because he stays tight. Like he doesn't fully extend his arms. They're like tucked in like at 90.
That's what I was saying though, is like on trick dunks you have to keep them tight. Like you can do a double arm block like Mutaz Barshin, he's a speed jumper off one, but he keeps the arms really tight. So it's like the faster your takeoff is, the tighter that moment of inertia has to be. The tighter you have to hold the arms to be able to get them through the whole arm action before you take off, right? To time everything up and get a good summation of forces. So I feel like we've talked about kind of everything. Maybe the only other thing is like finishing the jump with the arms high. You have to do that so that you are able to increase the height of your center of mass at takeoff, as well as, that's the biggest reason. You would agree with that?
Yeah. Wait, what? Say that again?
I said when you take off, you have to keep your arms high at takeoff so you maximize the height of your center of mass at toe off.
Oh, yes. This is something with like any
trick dunk too, actually, yeah.
With any trick dunk, any jump, you basically want to be fully extended at toe off. At toe off, you want your hands straight up above your head. And yeah, you always want to keep that in mind. I think for 1 foot, it might be a little different, because it'll fuck up your mechanics if you're like trying to fully extend before going for a trick dunk. But generally for 2 foot and off a lob, you want to fully extend. And then for off the dribble, you want to punch it to like around like the tip of your head, like just above head height, and then go into your motion.
Got it. So I feel like we've covered kind of everything here. Isaiah has a big dunk session today. I'm going to be lifting and not dunking. So he's so excited. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. If you guys have other podcast topics, drop them in the comments below. We'll cover them. Sometimes we have a hard time thinking of like new, native, organic content. Yeah. So make sure you guys drop them on. Even if it's a guest and you want a guest on there, drop their name in there and we will try to make it happen. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. We will catch you on tomorrow's episode. Peace out.